This event will start soon. Make sure your speakers are on. This event will start soon. Make sure your speakers are on. This event will start soon. Make sure your speakers are on. "2023 is just around the corner, and the world's economy is struggling. How to prepare your sales team for 2023 downturn. In our discussion, we will look for answers to this question and talk about ways to overcome obstacles without giving up on your growth goals. This live event is brought to you by Livespace CRM. Here's your host, Paweł Paluch.
Hello, hi there. Welcome to our live event stream today. My name is Paweł Paluch, and I'm the head of sales at Livespace.io, the sales enablement CRM. The topic of today's live event is deeply rooted in the things that happened over the past 2 years and this year as well. It's extremely serious and can cause a lot of stress and anxiety. But I'm also super excited because we have amazing guest speakers today that will help me and you guys understand what can sales, marketing, and growth leaders do to compensate the negative impact of the current downturn. Or like and some call it also the next recession. Also, something that I'm extremely happy about and I will never get used to is that the flexibility of the technology nowadays. So the pandemic should made us to get used to the fact that in one virtual room we can host guests from all over the place. And today our guests are tuning in from Morocco, Sweden, and Poland. And I would like to thank in advance to all the attendees that expressed interest in today's event. And before the event, I took a peek at the list of attendees and a few comments as well. And I'm super pumped as we have visitors from all around the globe. And using the opportunity to also to check if you all can hear me and see me as well, please, you can use the comment or the chat window and let us know where from are you watching us today. All right, so enough of this monologue. I would like to invite on this virtual stage my colleague and my co-host of today's event, a person you might know or even have seen on our live event earlier this week on Monday. So Michał Mroczkiewicz.
Hello, welcome all. Very nice to see you all virtually from this side of the screen. Thanks, Paweł, for the intro, and let's hope it will be a good and dynamic discussion. Myself, I'm more optimist usually, so hopefully it's not all doom and gloom with regards to our today's subject of downturn, recession, bear market, different names. But yeah, with a really great panelist, I believe there will be some really hints and tactics, strategies maybe with regards to how to deal with this sort of not so rosy scenario that's in front of us all. So yeah, looking forward to the discussion, definitely.
Great. Michał, can you kind of briefly introduce us to the things that will happen at the end of our event?
Yeah, it will be great for all of us to stay with us till the end, because we've got some little surprise planned. So there will be a bonus from Livespace and also from all our partners, our guests today. So yeah, stay with us till the end, because it's in my opinion, it'll be worth it. So do check it yourself.
Yeah, that's the tricky way to keep you guys until the end of our event. I hope that the questions and the answers and the things that we'll be talking about will also keep you on your feet. So, all right, thank you, Michał. One thing that about this event and this specific format that we have selected is that we would love to make it as interactive as possible. So please feel free to post your questions in the comment section for folks on LinkedIn, or chat if you're using YouTube or Facebook, because we are kind of streaming simultaneously to several platforms at the same time. Michał will gather those questions and we will try answer as many as possible of them at the panel discussion at the end of the event. So, okay, I think we've got it settled. Enough is enough. Let me introduce the first guest speaker. You might know him as the full-time backpacker. He loves to sing on LinkedIn, being pretty good at it, by the way. He loves to get to know different cultures, speaks a lot of languages. Like I have a list in front of me, but I will not even try to get all of them. Like Spanish, English, obviously Portuguese, German, and apparently also a little bit of Lithuanian. He's the director of inbound sales at Leadfeeder, and please welcome Dipak Vadera.
Hey, Paweł, thank you very much for the warm welcome. Michał, it's good to see you again too. I apologize in advance for the background noise. It's not my usual setup. I'm just trying to make do with the lobby here at the Riad that I'm staying at in Marrakesh, in Morocco.
Yeah, Dipak, it's a pleasure to have you with us today, obviously. Thankfully, I've heard there was a nasty story behind the lack of Wi-Fi, so your presence was in danger, right?
It was indeed, but you just have to stay calm in these situations, and if you just keep positive, there's always something around the corner that may surprise you. And look, we made it happen. We're here.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And you stay in Morocco for the last day, right? So what's your next venture?
Yeah, I've been here since late last week. I've had a chance to explore a fair bit of Marrakesh and their surrounding areas. And I'll be here till end of day tomorrow, when I'm heading back to the UK for a week and to Spain a week after from there. So a couple of weeks of travel in front of me.
Yeah, so it's not exaggerating, the full-time backpacker, right?
It's not indeed, no.
Cool.
If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that I'm usually hopping around, and I've made it a lifestyle. I've been working as a digital nomad or working remotely for the past 5.5 years. And like I said, it's the lifestyle for me, and I intend to continue doing it for as long as I can, or until I get tired from it.
Cool. A little bit envy. I started to envy you like a while ago already, but I need to express that as well on this event as well. Okay, cool. So you are a director of inbound sales at Leadfeeder. But can you tell a little bit more about the current role, and actually what does it mean, like that you are a director of inbound sales?
Sure. So I'll tell you first a little bit about the company. So Leadfeeder, in a nutshell, shows you what companies visit your website and what they get up to whilst on there. In the last couple of months, we've merged with a company called EchoBot to now supplement the web visitor data that we provide with contact data and data enrichment, signals and triggers. And in my role, I currently sit between the sales and the marketing team. So I help the marketing team in ways in which we can better capture and create demand. And then on the sales side, ensuring that the sales team are, of course, hitting their target, helping implement coaching strategies, and just making sure overall satisfaction across the team. Are people happy working in the sales team at Leadfeeder?
Yeah, I know that the well-being and the mental area is one of your favorite topics that we will kind of jump in a little bit later. Sorry. I'm kind of curious about the background. Like, how did you end up in this role at this company specifically?
Where do I even start? So I actually kickstarted my career after academia in marketing. It didn't take me long to realize that I wasn't cut out for that aspect of marketing that I was placed in. I was actually working in the back end of marketing, and I wanted to be out there on the field, interacting with the people who were essentially the end users. So I decided to make the switch. I kept on hearing how marketers were just bad-mouthing salespeople about how they always got the credit for everything, and I thought, I wonder what it's like on the other side. I wonder what it's like on the dark side. And I decided to make the switch and join sales team at a couple of startups. How did I come across Leadfeeder? Well, I was backpacking across the globe in 2017, and money was running short after a while, and I didn't think it was wise to dig into my savings. So I thought about coming back to London, and on my way back to London, which is the place that I use as my base, as my hub, an ex-colleague of mine was one of the first hires at Leadfeeder. He introduced me to the company. The minute he gave me that elevator pitch, I just thought to myself, where has something like this been for all my sales life? I really could have used something like this. And it was a no-brainer for me. I was totally bought into the vision of what they were trying to achieve. He arranged a call with our CRO and CEO, and that was me on board.
And it's been 5 years, right?
5 years last week, that's right. It's been a journey. It's been a wild journey so far. I've been able to wear a couple of hats, different hats throughout my time here, and I'm really looking forward to what lies ahead for us, especially now with the merger with EchoBot.
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, and I think 2017 was a year of many changes for many, me included as well. And you told the nice story that you felt that it clicked with Leadfeeder, with the culture, with the people, and the product itself, like how does it work? So could you tell me very briefly, pitch me the business, tell me what's the product all about, why Leadfeeder?
So Leadfeeder addresses a very common use case. Like I mentioned before, it shows you what companies are visiting your website and what they get up to whilst on there. So instead of targeting companies in the dark or reaching out to people who have never heard about your product, never inquired for it, and maybe don't even need it, is not a good use of anyone's time. The average sales rep spends about 40% of their day just trying to figure out who to reach out to. And as you can imagine, that's not a good. You're not paying people to trying to figure that out. You want them to be actually generating those conversations with people, while building those relationships and ultimately closing that business. So I think the use case really hit the nail with me, and I could totally relate to it. My past sales roles, I was lucky if I got an Excel sheet with list of companies to go after. But like I said, there was no intent for those companies, and I was just, for the most part, just reaching out to companies in the dark, right? Shooting in the dark, hoping I'd hit something.
Yeah, I think the technology changes quite a lot. I remember same like you when I started out in my first sales role. I didn't even have the Excel spreadsheet with the names. I was just kind of said do your magic, sell.
Usually I'd get booklets of A4s with just names of companies and nothing else. If I was lucky, I'd get an Excel sheet, which I could then enrich with further contact data, and it was ideal.
That's perfect. So Leadfeeder definitely supports sales folks in this very hard kind of role and action to find the real people that you would like to interact with. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much for that. I would like to start off and switch gears a little bit and ask about the topic of what's going on with the downturn, with the recession. We all see it already. And probably we will see it already also in 2023. And I know that the mindfulness and the well-being is an extremely important factor of business success, for many, but also for yourself. And we have just came out of the pandemic where people got hit severely when it comes to the mental state. And this time it's a little bit different. And what would be your suggestions to sales managers, maybe sales leaders, who will have to deal with a lot of anxiety among their team folks and basically their sales teams?
So there's three things that I'd like to cover, three things that I believe any sales leader listening right now can implement straight away from today. The first one being creating an environment where people can openly express themselves. The second one would be using one-to-ones as personal check-ins, as well as the standard pipeline reviews that you might conduct. And the last one, helping build balance into your team's workdays. So I guess let's go with the first one. The best way to go on about setting that foundation for an environment where people feel comfortable up in opening up is by leading with vulnerability yourself as a leader. You need to take the time to really recognize when an employee is struggling, like look out for these things, show them that they're not alone, and reassure them that you have their back through the good and the bad, right? Because you will be on their back when they're not hitting the number. When they are hitting their number, you'll be celebrating that. And when they won't, you will also be on their back. So just show them, I'm here for you, regardless of whether you hit your number or not. I'm here to work with you to ensure that we can make that happen. Open about your own stories or struggles or failures. After all, you can't lead on vulnerable topics if you aren't vulnerable yourself. And I'll share a very recent example. So we had our team-wide company retreat over 2 weeks ago. This is something that we do on a biannual basis. And this just coincidentally happened to be our biggest one yet, post-merger. So picture 300 people coming together from all corners of the globe for an action-packed week of activities, seminars, workshops. For me personally, it wasn't my first rodeo. I've been to a couple of team weeks in the past, but I'm fully aware of how overwhelming they can be, how tiring and draining they can be. So this is what I did. I simply reached out to the team. I shared my own experience of having lived and gone through a couple of these team weeks, the good, then perhaps the not so good, the tiring aspect. And I just commended them on their participation in all the activities and their effort in getting to know their new peers, and just letting them know that I hear you. I know exactly what you're going through, and it's totally fine to not be okay, or it's totally fine if you need a break, if you need a moment, and have your some of your alone time for yourself. So leaders, you have to be vulnerable. And how else can you expect people to open up if you have an expressionless facade yourself?
Yeah,
the second recommendation I'd like to propose is, like I mentioned earlier, using those one-to-ones as personal check-ins. So factoring in that time to discuss those personal matters rather than just conducting, like I said, the pipeline reviews, or worse, reading things from a dashboard. But I don't want to open that Pandora box. I'll just leave it. And I shouldn't have to say this, right? But you should ultimately be caring for the people that you've hired, wanting them to succeed in their personal and professional lives. Like the saying goes, I know it's very cliche, but if you take care of your people, they'll take care of business. It really does come down to that. So get to really know what drives your team members. What's their North Star in life? What are their goals? What are their interests? And once you have an idea, see how you can offer to assist them in making those goals happen. And sometimes this can just be as simple as, letting them have the afternoon off so they can go pick up a kid from school or run some errands or even spend time with their family, just helping them bond outside of their usual day-to-day. And I think it's imperative for a company like ours, being remote first. I think life and career development have pretty much intertwined. We eat, live, work, sleep, and relax in pretty much the same areas, aka the gray zone, as I like to call it. So stress at home can definitely bleed into your work life and vice versa. So I think addressing these issues before they escalate or before they become something a lot bigger can go a long way toward helping your team find balance in their life.
Yeah, I think the story behind the mental state and the well-being is extremely powerful. It's a great lesson to all of us on what great leadership actually could look like, or even should look like when we think about the daily struggles. I think it's also not super kind of interconnected with recession and the downturn. We have to be really empathetic towards our people. But I think specifically in the recession and downturn that we're seeing, I've noticed quite a few days ago, I saw the Gartner report on sales, folks. Companies are not reducing the amount of money that they want to spend on technology. They basically want to tweak it. But at the end of the day, one thing that Gartner mentions is that you need to keep your staff on their feet. You have to take care of them, because once you will lose them, you will not retrieve them. And it's a very unhealthy environment right now when it comes down to your talent. You have to retain and grow your talent within your sales team. So that's super, super powerful lesson from Dipak. So Thank you for that.
I still have one more last tip.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So that would involve incorporating balance into your team's workdays. So essentially helping your team structure their day in a way that they can get their work done without feeling like they're like swamped. So this could be incorporating things like calendar blocking or cutting out meetings that could easily be Slack messages and so on. At Leadfeeder as well, we have something called a well-being benefit classes that we run on a weekly basis, and these are done to help people relax, unwind, practice mindfulness. So we are trying to promote this internally as well. And feedback from this initiative, which has been ongoing for a while now, has been very, very positive, which is why we've continued to run it and even step it up. And every now and then, even if you don't have anything like this in place, just take a moment to remind your team that it's totally fine to have time for themselves. And I know, sorry, Paweł, sorry, Michal, I know I've rambled on for a while, but I'd really like to end with, managers, it's really up to you to change that stigma on mental health. You really can make a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like there's many things you can do on your own. So even without the huge support of organization, it seems like EchoBot and Leadfeeder are really taking care of their staff. But there's like not only you, like if a good example flows from the above, from your executives, from the board, it definitely helps when the company shares the same vision on well-being. So that's pretty cool. And thank you for that, Dipak.
No worries.
I would like to invite our next guests. So please make yourself comfortable on our virtual couch, but don't leave us yet because we have a quick panel at the end of the event. And a quick reminder to everyone that you can use chat and comment section to post any questions you might have to us, to Dipak, specifically in the topics that he just shared. And we'll try to pick them up and try to answer as many as possible at the end. All right. So let's go to our next guest. So yes, it's plural. It seems that the good stuff always travels in pairs. So extremely funny story. Mike, my colleague who is present here, spoke to one of the guys about our event and got an approval. Coincidentally, we were all at the Saas talk in Dublin a few weeks back. And at the end of the first day, very tired after 2 or 3 pints of Guinness, I have spotted them in the crowd and decided to say hello. We never saw each other face to face, which is funny enough. And I knew that we were going to have this event together, but apparently not Daniel. He was rather shocked about it, but both are here today with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Thomas and Daniel, the founders of the most vibrant Nordic Saas community and Saas Nordics and their Saasiest event. So please give them the warm welcome. Gentlemen, it's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Paweł.
Thank you so much for
Mike.
having us. I don't know what you say after an intro like that, so we're thrilled to be here. Much appreciated.
Yeah, and also nice to see everyone here in the chat. That so many are here. Hi, Viviana. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Eva. Nice to see you, and looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, like for a second I was worried, Thomas, that you will not be here because I think I've got the confirmation that you will be present on the event, I think yesterday. So played like a true marketer as you are, right? So
yeah, we are always just in time, always delivering, but keep the tension a little bit. So it gets.
I don't know. All I heard was Paweł saying that you're not good at responding to emails, Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
I can be harsh sometimes, but no, yeah. I think that was Mike who sent that message. No, like you kept me in suspense till the very end. So well played. So how are you doing, Daniel, today?
Very good, thank you. Very good. We have a fun period ahead of us here in our own organization, Saas Nordic. So Q4 for us is probably slightly different compared to many of the people in the audience here. Like we don't have a hectic selling period. That's not the line of our business. So we don't have a bunch of deals that needs to close now. So for us, Q4, so in November, December, it's a lot of fun meetups. So we bring together the community in a bunch of different sessions where we just mingle, exchange ideas, talk about these types of things in a relaxed format. So we actually look forward to spending some time on the road over the next few weeks here and meeting the community. So lots of fun happening on our end.
Pretty cool. Thomas, so where are you guys calling us today from?
Well, we are calling from the tropical parts of Sweden in the very south. So in Lund and Eslöv, that's quite close to both Malmö and Copenhagen, if you're familiar with the Swedish geography.
Like we are neighbors basically. So
Yeah, of course. So, but we sit like 20 kilometers apart, me and Daniel, and this is usually, how we run our business. From home.
yeah, and from the short interview that we had a week ago with Daniel, like I think your roles really kind of connect each other pretty nicely.
Yeah.
I've heard that Thomas, you're a great marketer, and Daniel is a salesperson by heart. But could you tell me a little bit more about your role and what you do on your day-to-day basis in your role? And if you could start, Thomas, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Saas Nordic is a quite small organization, but we have a big operation. And since we are both co-founders and are running this together, we do, a little bit of everything, both of us. I would say that I lean a little bit more towards marketing and tech. But, I also have a sales background. So when you're a new company, everyone has to promote what you're doing and making sure that everything works in that way. But I would say leaning more towards marketing and tech would be my role.
Good. Thank you. Daniel, how about yourself?
Yeah, and it's just like Thomas said here. I think considering the size of our organization and operation, it's a little bit all hands on deck. So all of us do a little bit of everything. Small team. I think we're a team of 9-10 people, where everybody has to do a little bit of everything. Naturally, with my background, when I used to have a real job, I used to work on the revenue side or on the sales side. So when we have some events and so on, obviously Thomas and I work closely, putting together some of the packages and offers and so on lands a little bit on my end. But I think the biggest responsibility that sits on my end, but that's most distinct, is driving some of the conversation when it comes to the programs, putting together the agenda, like what is the community actually wants to discuss. That sits a little bit more on my end. But again, at the end of the day, it's all a group exercise here.
Perfect. So I also assume that you worked together in the past, or that is a wrong
correct.
Assumption.
Yeah,
exactly. That is a correct assumption.
And that is both, our history, but also why we ended up here in the first place. So we worked for a SaaS company in Sweden called InRiver, one of the larger one here, and we also teamed up there. So Daniel was the VP of sales, and I had a period at InRiver where I was a sales engineer, and I also was a product manager later on. So we sort of traveled a lot down in Europe, conquered new territory together, and in those sessions and traveling, we found each other, and we were friends for many years there, had a lot of fun. And when we both left InRiver to go to different employers, we also got this separation anxiety. We wanted to do something together, and that's actually how all of this started. We started to do a podcast on the side. We wanted to both learn more from other Nordic SaaS leaders, and also be able to share a little bit of our experiences throughout the years, and that turned into something much bigger that we couldn't even imagine from the start.
Pretty cool. A nice story of cooperation that comes a long way, right? So
yeah,
pretty cool. But Thomas, I have a question to you. Let's start off with you, because I spoke with Daniel a bit. You were not at that party, but he left me with a lot of dirt on you guys. Oh, dude, there's so much fun stuff that Daniel mentioned. I really want to double check one thing, because
sure.
I love gaming as well, and I've heard that you are a gaming nerd. Is that true?
It depends on what you mean with gaming. I have certain things that I enjoy. I'm not the big computer gaming nerd, I would say, but there is definitely other games that I really enjoy.
Such as, can you?
Well, I'm actually in a few weeks. I'm gonna participate in the Swedish Championship in pinball. I don't know if Daniel mentioned this, but it's sort of my latest passion. It's something that you can spend a lifetime to learn and master. So I'm really enjoying that for the moment.
Wow, that's
That's
I
really
wasn't.
cool.
Yeah, I
It is
wasn't
really cool.
expecting that, to be honest. I wasn't expecting that. Well, that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I see that you fancy like those uh, interesting sports, I would say. Because
Yeah.
over to you, Daniel,
Yeah.
Mr. Sales. You have mentioned that you play the Spanish sport called paddle.
Yes.
I have seen some videos on YouTube about it.
Yes.
That's incredibly intense. Like, what's the story behind it? Like, why paddle in Sweden? Like, how did you end up with it?
I actually can't explain like what happened here, but a couple of years ago, this new Spanish sport called paddle. If you haven't played it, it's like squash and tennis combined in a cage. So there's the glass cage, but there's still a net as well. And somehow during the pandemic, the sport came, and since we couldn't go anywhere, everybody worked from home. All other physical activity was more or less closed, like gyms, if you want to go to the theater or cinemas or whatever, everything was closed. But for some reason, the paddle halls were open. So everybody turned to play paddle, and it's become a like the people sport of Sweden. So it's been super popular. So 3 years ago, we had basically 0 courts in the country. Now we have 3,000 paddle halls with multiple courts in over just 3 years. So I'm just another Swedish guy, midlife crisis, that wants to live my youth by playing paddle, I suppose.
That's great. Alrighty. Thomas,
Yes.
could you briefly, because I think the time flies really, really fast when you're having fun, and I really enjoy the conversation with you two guys. Can you tell me, like, very briefly about Saas Nordic and Saasiest
Yeah.
a little bit more?
Yeah, so shortly, Saas Nordic is the largest network for B2B SaaS companies here in the Nordics, and we are also expanding. We have done it into the Baltics, and we also have a lot of interest from other countries. But what we do is that we want to democratize knowledge around SaaS. We see there is so much knowledge there, and there hasn't really been a good channels to share this. So we have a Slack community that is open for everyone that works within a B2B SaaS company. We have more than 650 companies represented. And then we have some more exclusive groups for CEOs and executives. We have, for instance, had 125 CEOs in our CEO network. And then I said we started out with a podcast. We are doing at least one episode a week with thought leaders around that. And you mentioned Saasiest. So in April this year, we did the by far largest SaaS conference here in the Nordics. So we gathered almost 1,000 people for 2 days in Malmö, Sweden. And I think we had around 66 speakers or something like that. A lot of fun stuff as well. Party at night, the paddle tournament for Daniel's sake the day before. And also I managed to get the poker tournament in there as well, because that's another thing that I'm interested in. So yeah, we want to create good meeting places, good ways of connecting with people, sharing knowledge, and so yeah, I think that's it.
I can only kind of reassure everyone, like, Saasiest was amazing. Like, I participated heavily together with Mike here on the call as well, on the online event, which was already, amazing way to kind of get to know a little bit more about the culture, about the business inside Nordics. It gives a lot of information. It gives you the ability to, if you're planning to go global, like, there's this kind of saying, if you're going global, think local. And I think, like, Saasiest as an event, like, if you can't travel, the online event was amazing. But if you can, I think in April 2023, you have also the next edition, right?
Yeah, so we're going to continue doing the in-person event in April, and then do a big event in the fall, because that's also, we can bring in more international speakers and thought leaders, and we had a lot of interest, and it's fun to see that you still can do a digital event if you have good content and so on. And we are actually today announcing a new event. We are announcing Saasiest Jobs Day. We see this situation. A lot of people lose their jobs in the recession, but there's also other companies that are really trying to find talent. So we want to do something that can match these together. So yeah, you will see that now and in the coming days, information around that as well, and that will most likely be a recurring event that we do as well.
Yeah, congrats, guys, to you. Like, that's amazing. It sounds pretty awesome.
Great initiative here. Yeah.
Okay, before we'll head out to the next question, I would like to ask the audience, because we spoke about, quirky sports, interesting things. Like, can you share a little bit more about like what kind of unknown, a little bit kind of sassy sports you maybe play and used to do? Like, that's kind of interesting because like we have Paddle from Sweden. That's kind of incredible, the combination of the two cultures. So if you have anything interesting, like in terms of the sports, what do you do? Like, please share in the comment section. We would love to know this a little bit more. So that's that. So guys, Thomas, I will continue with a question too about your thoughts on, a strong community during the downturn, during the recession, during the business growth ups and downs. What do you think? Like, what role can a strong community play for our audience's business growth?
Yeah. So I think also, and this ties into, there are different types of communities, and we work with communities with peers, right? But you might also build your communities with your customers, with your prospects, and so on. And I think it's so important that you go in with empathy, and that you really engage with your community, be that trusted advisor, be very generous with what you're doing. And there might be situations here where you can't do that hard selling, right? And I think to build up a community and support the people that are your target audience and so on, I think there's an opportunity here as well to also create those ambassadors that can be so important for you moving forward when things change here.
Yeah, I think that as well. And building communities is not something that comes easy, right?
No,
I think
no.
Many companies tried that, many companies failed. So definitely nurturing and building the actual community that surrounds a specific topic with passion is an extremely difficult job to do.
It takes more time than you think, and you need to be more engaged, personal than you think. It's not just hiring a community manager and think that everything's okay. So the people that actually has some authority in your community, the people that has the product knowledge, the people that has the knowledge about the business and so on, they need to be involved directly in this operation in order for this to be interesting for the community.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, I think from my perspective, the number one reason why companies fail with their community build or setup is they actually don't treat it as a community. They treat it as a organized lead list.
Yeah.
And if I'm a member and I feel like, okay, you just put me in a Slack channel, but essentially you just want to sell me something, it's not going to work out. So you have to play the long game. You have to just give and give and give and give. And whether that's educational pieces, but the best communities from our perspective, when we look at it, and some people that we get inspired is the ones that where the individuals go, and when they walk away, they leave that, whether it's a chat room or Slack channel, a little bit smarter, a little bit better in their own profession, without asking for anything in return, essentially. And when you do that, then you get this vicious cycle. If I feel that I get a lot of this community, I will also by default feel a little bit guilty, and I need to contribute back.
Yeah, I think one of the secrets behind Saas Nordic and the success that we have had is that, we have sort of created or let members of the community be uplifted and be the thought leaders. You don't have to be the thought leader. You can have your customers or prospects or people there that is very knowledgeable, and you can give them an arena to share their knowledge and uplift them. I think that's a really good way of working. So think about that. Who in your audience could you lift up and give an arena? I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, we need to stop thinking about the community as a tool just to sell stuff, right? That will never work out. And I think like one of my kind of guys that I always go to when it comes to giving, not taking is, I don't know if you guys know, but he's also from our kind of part of Europe, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a guy in US. He lives there. Like he moved. He sold liquor with his dad, and interesting story. But nevertheless, he's a huge ambassador of giving and not taking. So I think he wrote pretty nice books on this as well. So
absolutely,
I love the guy.
I threatened Daniel yesterday that I would do a quote from Gary Vee about how kindness is the most powerful and underestimated, thing in business. So yeah.
I think then if that would be a quote per quote, we would have to kind of bleep it out, because that guy swears a lot in the comments, right? But I love them. He went bananas now with NFTs, a little bit kind of sideways. But still, I think giving more, not just taking, is a part of his kind of spiel that he uses. So cool. I really appreciate that. Daniel, quick question. I know it will not be a quick answer because it's a very complex question. I know you're very heavy on operational stuff. And, if you would think about our audience today, a B2B companies that are SMEs, so not that large organization, not enterprises, but people that, have like 30, 50, up to 100 people on board. What would you focus on during the current downturn? Like what things could you support? What could they do to support your business to keep on growing from the operational perspective?
Yeah, and it's a great question, and probably there's many different answers to this depending on who you ask. But I think if you look back just a couple of years, that would be my recommendation to everybody. We had COVID, and I was myself then an operator, VP sales of an organization, where we went from a normal month in February 2020, and then March was essentially a full stop. And then I made the mistake at that time to let go of 15% of my workforce. Because I saw if March is this, then April is going to be the same. And like I come from the school where you make decisions quick. It turned out that it was the wrong decision because while there was COVID, the customers that we were serving and the solution that we offered them was more needed than ever during a COVID phase. So I think my first advice is that don't panic. Actually speak with your customers. There will be some kind of a downturn, but does it affect all your customers? How does it affect them? Maybe some of them, just like I had during COVID time, actually had an uplift. I saw 50% of my customer basically double their revenue over the next 2 years. So I think that's one of the things, like try to understand what does your customers really feel about the upcoming 12 months and 18 months and what are their plans and how can you support that and be part of that? And then you model your decision based on that. And I think I've lived through a few crises. I think probably the worst one I had was in 2008. And then I was in the US representing an American company. One tip I always give to everybody, and I think it's more important now than ever, is that you should have your cohort analysis in place. You should really know who are your strong customers and find copies of these essentially, because now you need to be more focused than ever. Don't chase everybody. Find the customers where you can bring them the most value in the shortest amount of time, customers that will bring you the most value in the shortest amount of time. Where do you have, the best ability to pay, shortest payback time, these types of things. So I think you need to start focusing on, don't go broad, don't shoot everywhere, just look at a few sets of customers. And I think another aspect, and I promise I will try to wrap up now. Another aspect that we've seen work in all types of recessions for two different reasons. You want to look at your organization and your existing customers. Like, can you potentially maybe use some of your workforce to give your existing customer base a little bit more love and attention for two different reasons? One, maybe there's an ability there, an opportunity to uplift them a little bit. Do they need something more from you? Can you sell something additional to them in these times? If they're happy, there's probably a good chance. But you also want to protect them and make sure that you catch any potential red flags, any risk of churn early on. So I think there's elements that you can do that, and maybe I have been part of this exercise where I've rotated maybe new business sales into more of a customer success function, giving a little bit more attention to that. So I think there's a few different things you can do. And then the last thing I'd wrap up with, and there's data that proves this, and I've lived this through myself. When people are facing some struggles ahead, like in this case, a potential recession, or the recession is going to happen, that's a fact. It is proven that they're more receptive to something called away language rather than towards language. And I saw this also in the last business I represented a little bit. Like, it was much easier for us to, a normal pitch, to give you an example, was like, hey, if you buy our product information management system, we will help you sell in additional channels. You don't sell on Amazon today. With our system, you will be able to sell at Amazon. You will be able to sell Tmall in China. That was the golden pitch. It used to work. During COVID, that pitch wasn't as feasible, moving to something new. But what instead worked was the away language. And just to give you an example here, instead of selling additional channels and opportunities, it was like, oh, I see you're selling today in this channel. And I can also see it takes you 5 hours to push a product to that channel. What if I would say that it's going to take you an hour to push to that channel? And that was much more feasible. So it's like away from a problem, but not towards a golden opportunity. That's later. I hope that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. That's a wealth of knowledge, and I can imagine that you can go on like for hours now, like talking about stuff that things and companies could do. So I really appreciate that. One thing that you mentioned about this kind of vague language that stopped working, and I think that's the essence of what you're saying. Like, downturns, recessions, bad things always happen. Like, if you are naive enough to say like your business will be thriving for the next 10 years without any issue and challenge, you're wrong, right? You have to be prepared. You have to be ready to be flexible enough to adjust your way of doing things, create new products, new services, and actually talk to your folks, like talk to your customers. That's the ultimate advice I would give to anyone, to just talk with your customers and based on that, see what you can actually do. And your advices are spot on. Like, those are like the three, like I would say, fundamental stuff that you should think about when going into a recession like that. So thank you, Daniel and Thomas, for being here with us. I will invite our last guest, so please make yourself comfortable besides Dipak on our extremely virtual couch. And obviously, don't leave us yet. I have seen with the corner of my eye, I'm looking at the chat, that we have some questions popping up on the list. But you still can use the chat and comment section to post additional questions. You can see that our guests are not just pretty faces. Those are people that can, support us with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge about like what we can do. And all this knowledge so far, it's like a kind of embarrassment of riches. And we still have our last guest speaker here. And when we met for the last time, he told me he's a super boring person. Like, it's very extreme to hear from someone like that. But don't be fooled by that very humble guy. He casually goes for like snowboarding to places that you didn't know even existed, like the mountains that were never ridden with a snowboard. He loves all things racing. So in my opinion, he's an adrenaline junkie for me. So he redefines the word boring and makes me think that where did my life make a bad turn? So please welcome Yurii from Woodpecker.
What's up, Paweł? What an intro! Hey, chat, give it up for Paweł. Like, he's doing a killer job. Like during this, like intro one banger after another.
Yes, like if you're looking for someone to marketing to write you intros, that's basically me. So how are you doing, Yurii?
Doing well. Enjoying this panel. Like, amazing insights dropped by everyone. Dipak, Thomas, Daniel. I mean, like, lots of knowledge. I've taken my notes. I guess this is the biggest benefit of going to the last one. So I'm just taking notes like crazy without like, you can see me, like the screen on my face when I'm just like sitting here. So awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. The question that I dropped to everyone, like you're calling us today from Poland, is that correct?
That's right. The city, the name of which a lot of English speakers and the foreigners cannot pronounce when they see it written. It's called Wrocław, but everybody call it Wrocław or whatever. They butcher it heavily.
It basically, we use two words to create this name. It's Wroc and then love. So if you have love to a city, that's basically Wrocław, right?
Yeah, that's what the city is all about. It's really nice mix of work and just basic leisure culture and good energy.
Yeah. So to kick it off with the last interview, can you tell me a little bit about your current role and what do you do at Woodpecker?
Yeah. So, well, my role is kind of changing all the time, but it all started with sales, and it's the core of this role is the sales activities. So I've started my journey in Woodpecker as an inbound sales rep. So I was kind of the guy that would be working for Dipak right now in Leadfeeder. Then, as I progressed and the company grew, I kind of evolved into an outbound sales, a BDR. And now I'm leading a team of BDRs, but also because things are happening, a lot of things are changing. My role is also evolving into also exploring some business opportunities for Woodpecker. So any kind of big strategic partnerships that we can set up. Also being present on the social platforms. So I'm big on personal branding while sticking to sales side because I believe the reason why the personal branding right now is so big is we kind of got tired of all of those coaches telling us what to do. We want kind of real world experience, and there's no other way to just to hear that from people who do that on a daily basis. So this is kind of the latest definition of my job. We'll see what happens in the next month.
So the jack of all trades, right?
I hope so. I hope so. That not a joker.
It's great. Could you give us a little bit kind of a background? Like, how did you end up with Woodpecker, and how did you end up with within Poland? Like, I think you come from Ukraine, right?
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, if you'd ask me back in whatever I made that decision, I'd never thought I'd be in Woodpecker and I'd be here in Poland. But it all happened because back in when I was 15 years old, I won this program which allows you to go to the United States to study and as an exchange student for a year. So I kind of seen first time how cool is it to be in an international environment. And when I came back to Ukraine, I still had a year to decide where to go to study. So I basically picked the option. I was not the smartest curriculum guy. I didn't have the best grades. I'm kind of I'm interested in things that are interesting for me, and other things I'm just getting to pass them. So couldn't apply to any kind of grant. So I found the city that I kind of love, could afford, and has cool study in university. So I ended up here in Poland in Wrocław, and I always wanted to be a part of a startup. So since my first years of study, I was involved into students organizations, kind of honing my skills, developing some stuff. And then during some time, I guess there was second year, I was working at this corporate job as a part-time. And then my friend said yo, we're actually launching this cool startup and we're hiring. Do you consider maybe applying? And that was cool situation because it was funny, cool for me, not for him. He also applied and he thought that I'd be a good fit. And I actually was a good fit. And I just beat him in that process of recruitment. And we were just laughing about that at that time, that I got recruited and he's not. So this is how I ended up in Woodpecker. That was back then, there was a team of 8, something people. So there was a founding crew, 30 something clients. So all hands on deck. You do what you are capable of doing best. And it was a cool journey.
Very entrepreneurial approach, right? When you start with such a small company that has so big ambitions.
It's definitely one of those things that you get to learn a lot of things. And what was really important for me is the people who started it. So I was really looking for, is there some things that I can find that resonates with me with that person who starts it? Because I know that he'll be the one who shapes up the culture. I was 19 back at that time. So I kind of was still didn't know what I should develop. So I was looking for a good mentor. And that's when it all kind of made sense to me. I'm in the right place.
Cool. Pretty cool. I definitely want to kind of revert back to your hobbies and the adrenaline part. Can you share with me and with the audience, like, what car do you own and how fast can it go?
That's going to be the biggest surprise to all of you. I don't own any car.
Yes, I knew it. Like, I knew it from the beginning that I've heard that
I know.
you're
I
like
mean,
a racing fan.
Yeah, I'm a racing fan. I love go-karting and I love sim racing. So I'm kind of like I love the experience of just like being able to either go just fully send it on the go-karting track, or
Mhm.
the experience just to basically to go around like I don't know. Imagine put yourself in an e-sim like F1 car and just go around like some kind of I don't know Brazil circuit, which is Grand Prix is happening this weekend. So I'll probably be hopping into some sim racing place that we have here and just like doing some laps there. So that's kind of my hobby. But honestly, I'm not a big fan of driving. Like traffic is a lot of stressing. It's a stressful stuff sometimes. And I'm not a big fan of staying in those traffic jams. So I kind of like going fast, but not staying slow.
Yeah, trams should not go fast, right? But you do then travel with the most expensive vehicles in your city, probably like 2-3 million per tram. That's pretty expensive.
Yeah, but also the thing is this: I'm really enjoying this car sharing that we have in Warsaw. So like I really love to go by bike whenever I can, but if I really need to go, I'll just like hop in the car and just like park it whatever I want to and just leave it there. So it's a cool thing.
Great, thank you. So let's switch back gears again. And could you tell me briefly about Woodpecker? Like, what is Woodpecker?
Yeah, I mean, we started Woodpecker with the goal to enable entrepreneurs to live on their terms. And back in that time when we started, it was 2015, was the idea to give you an ability to contact your potential clients without having to spend like breaking the bank for a marketing budget, without having to go to talk to someone to set up everything SEO related. It's kind of get you like some really interesting people that you want to go like in contact with. So we find like a way around that. It's kind of skip a couple of steps that hey, this is a way how you can exactly contact that. If you go through like basically the research, firstly, who would you like to contact, and then here how you can get their data. Here's how you can send it like exactly straight up to them. So that's why we've developed this automation solution that we have right now. Basically, Woodpecker is a platform that gives you like an opportunity to automate cold emails and engage on different platforms. So it's not like we started with a cold email and then over time it evolved as sales kind of evolving right now onto different platforms. So it's also social selling. So we're allowing you to go to like social platforms. Then if you want to go and follow up via like SMS, which is still not quite popular, which is a good indicator for sales reps who are listening right now. So and then kind of we were adding one thing after another. Then video would be a thing, calling. So it's becoming like all in one platform for you to get in touch with the potential customers.
That's pretty cool. Like, Livespace is a customer of Woodpecker as well, and I can only kind of confirm what Yurii just mentioned. We're not probably using this enough in terms of personalization, and towards that, the question that I have in terms of what's going on right now, again, recession, downturn, changes effectively. I know that you're super deep on ultra or basically personalization when it comes down to any tools that you use like with Woodpecker or whatever, and leveraging the well-defined niches. Do you think that approach will gain on significance during the current situation that we're having in the economies, or people will turn into something different? Or maybe like, what's your advice for the marketing and sales folks on this part?
I think the part of an answer was already mentioned by you, Paweł, by Daniel, by Thomas. Is that again what you mentioned is if you want to go global, you go local. And Daniel then mentioned that idea that hey, you kind of need to know your customers, talk to your customers, and that stuff. Exactly the same things happen right now in sales. Is that there are less mistakes that you're able like that you have a room for to make because everything there are more businesses that are struggling, and you kind of have to really know how to communicate with them, so you even can like just basically start a conversation, because it's not it's not a matter of, okay, I'm just contacting every business from this industry that are fitting like, this, I don't know, employee size. It's also about understanding what each of them is going through right now, because some of the companies at this exactly the same industries might be either laying off people right now, which happens a lot. Like you can see a lot of people losing their jobs, and some companies might be hiring. So you kind of need to really understand what's their top priority right now, and in order like for you to be able to build a pipeline right now, you kind of I really love to call on it. There are kind of two steps of personalization. So the first one, which people are not really saying about like it's personalization, but for me, it is a personalization. It's targeting personalization. It's you being relevant. It's not really that you're customizing to like a person that you're sending, because sometimes people misunderstand that. I think like personalization, oh, I'll find a hobby that, I don't know, like, Dipak is all over the world traveling right now. I probably should start my cold emailer and then, and just like, hey, do you want my, I don't know, whatever, B2B Saas? Well, if I just go like that, break it up, it doesn't make any sense. I need to be relevant right now, because in times like these, Dipak might enjoy my first line, but then he says like, yo, dude, I really love the first line, but it's not relevant at all. What I need to do right now is I need to kind of uncover that urgency that, hey, whoa, I'm missing out on something, or like, hey, I didn't think about this process in my team right now, or like, oh, actually, yes, we were thinking about that, and there is a way how I can like go around it. So in times like these, I feel like this is really important for you to be extremely like relevant to the person, and then as a cherry on top, you can add some kind of cool personalization inside, like, I don't know, like my hobby, snowboarding, and like you can tie it to whatever I'm going through right now and kind of just like slide it quickly to my thing of relevancy. But without relevancy and good targeting, personalization right now will just get you some good impressions and maybe good leads for years to come later, but not right now.
Cool. Sorry for the kind of quick kind of going into your way of thinking right now, but I know that Daniel needs to hop off from our call at right now. I hope that Thomas can fill in his shoes right now. But thank you, Daniel, for being with us. That's a wealth of knowledge from you. So
Thank you so much for
Take
having
care.
us.
That's the beauty of being two, right? You can always.
You guys are in good hands.
Thank you, Daniel.
Take care now.
Thanks.
See you, Daniel.
We are not finishing this up. We are actually making a segue towards the last part of our discussion, so the panel. So I would love to invite everyone back to have a discussion. And I have basically like two questions to all of you guys. Thankfully, Daniel left, so we'll have like one less person. So maybe we'll try to squeeze ourselves into the next couple of minutes or even a little bit kind of more. So in terms of, your company goals and your business goals for the next like kind of 3 to 6 months. So we are going into the worst times probably for major countries in Europe, basically in the world. So what are the goals for your business and for yourself for the next 6 or 3 months? And I would love to kick it off with Thomas.
Sure. I mean, for us, it's basically three things. First, grow the community. We see a lot of opportunities there, both within the Nordics and outside the Nordics. Second one being increased content production. So we are really doubling down on what we do with the podcast, what we do with the saasnordic.com website, and so on, leveraging the community, but also, being more effective, plan more, work smarter, and so on, which leads me to the third one. And it's really about operation excellence, working with automation, delegation, and also focus. So that's what we're going to focus on the next 3 to 6 months.
Cool. Appreciate that. Same question, Dipak, like the next 3 to 6 months business-wise for you guys?
So there's two main goals. The first one, post-merger, we're in the process of kind of consolidating workflows, tech stacks, and making sure we can bring everyone on the same wavelength going forward. So I guess that's the main priority. And then just looking at the sales team specifically, I would say looking at ways in which we can streamline our sales process. So I think Jonas mentioned in the comments, it's only natural that our sales cycle will get longer. It's very normal due to decisions, tighter budgets. So just thinking of ways in which we can improve efficacy across the team. So that could perhaps relate to maybe combining certain steps in the sales process, or eliminating some unnecessary red tape, or even evaluating your team's calls. So things like these, looking out and seeking ways in which we can get better at selling and streamlining the process that we currently have.
Cool, appreciate that. Thank you. Yurii, same question, like 3 to 6 months for you and Woodpecker.
Last year we went public, and that kind of allows us to build a lot of things that we were lacking. And what we're doing right now, we're actually in a position right now that we've got those important pieces of, like, you know, the brain power that we were missing. We hired quite a lot of people. We continue to hire right now, and it's all the matter of implementing the proper features and expanding kind of the things that we're offering in a smart way, but like very agile, kind of listening to the, like what you guys also mentioned before, that we got to really communicate with our customers right now. It's really to understand what we should be going like forward, but not only communicating with the customers, we should also be communicating with influencers on the market. So any person who is and building their personal brands on topics of sales, cold email, and outbound sales related things, has kind of their idea and the perspective of the market, what's going on. It's really important to hear what are the things that are shaping up there. So this is the perspective, like, you know, this is the number one biggest goal for work. And as for my team right now, it's just empowerment of everybody to start building their personal brands, because really good question that Stefan dropped in the chat is influence is the new inbound. And I kind of, I see that thing that where we start selling through content right now more and more. It's becoming more kind of used thing, and it's also about building trust and social proof. And also, like, if you think about it, there's not so many leads that are actually looking to buy right now. But if we are really consistent with our content, we're actually building the pipeline for years to come, like for a month, for 2 months. When people will have this decision to buy, it will be on top of their minds.
Exactly. You have to be extremely patient. So guys, here you go. Like great advices and great tips on like what businesses can do, because this is actually going live for Saas Nordic, for Leadfeeder, and for Woodpecker. So definitely we can take those advices and try to use them as well for our own company. So thank you for that, guys. The second question that I got is like, it's a very complex question. It's more like a statement than a question, but the question comes after it. So probably you guys could know Jako from Winning by Design. That's one of the sales and marketing consulting companies, pretty known, like I think now global, quite worldwide, because they're investing heavy on US. And in one of their latest reports, they said that like during the current downturn, there are like 3 key area of focus for companies that doing now, and they should focus on like 3 things, like expansion on current customers. So very relatable what just Yurii said about communicating, working with your own existing customers. Then obviously reducing churn and increase the customer happiness. Sounds really, really positive. And then obviously the third thing is really kind of edgy, I would say, but I really love to hear your thoughts on that. Price increase, but where appropriate. And that's the magic keyword, like where appropriate. And I was thinking, like, what's your thoughts on that? And would you add anything to that list specifically? Would you agree with it or try to challenge it? We can go round robin and start off with Thomas again.
I think it's a good list. I wouldn't argue with any of the 3 things here. I would add what we have talked about before. I mean, about community building and thought leadership. That is something that you could focus on. Definitely be that trusted advisor and also engage existing customers and prospects in the community. So that's what I would add to this.
Cool, appreciate. Like I've heard some kind of voice issue, but I hope that our attendees and listeners will have a flawless experience. Dipak, over to you with the same question.
Yeah, I definitely agree with most of the points there, if not all. So expansion on current customers. Yeah, I think it costs 7 times more to acquire new customers and to sell to existing ones. So that's definitely a no-brainer. Try and figure out ways in which you can upsell and cross-sell. Of course, it makes it a lot easier if you have other products. And I guess that leads me very well on to this point number C. Price increases do make sense if you add other offerings to the mix. So for example, in our case specifically, having merged with a new company, we're going to definitely bundle in the EchoBot offering to the Leadfeeder one, hopefully to a certain extent. And with that, there will be a lot more value that our users can get. So it's only natural for the price to go up, just so we can start supporting as well the additional value that we can then bring from having both products merged, and just delivering a lot more for our users. So it does make sense, but again, you have to tread very carefully and just making sure that you are giving more if you are charging more, of course. So yeah, it definitely can work, but like it says there, where it's appropriate.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think the second one was a no-brainer. Like, if you can't expand on the current customers and you can't increase prices when you have customers that are not happy about your product, right? So it's a kind of a no-brainer that you have to put in the works to reduce the churn and make the NPS score, whatever, however you measure it, to be rocket high, and then you can follow and try to expand and increase the prices, right?
And I think what's really going to be helpful relating to point B is the social proof that one can generate from having those happy customers. And now more than ever, adding on to what Yurii mentioned, is we need to really look at our content strategies and our branding strategies. So we'll have to double down on on the amount of content that we put out there to acquire the same amount of customers that we were acquiring before. So I think it's really important to kind of make sure your customers are satisfied, because ultimately that's going to hopefully segue into building more content that can help you attract the right eyes and generate the conversations that your salespeople want to have.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Thank you. And Yurii, the same question.
I'll just add that I agree with everything that Thomas and Dipak said. Like, there's not much to add. Like, kind of just hear a little bit here and there from me on all those points is you cannot really win right now, in my opinion, if you're not really communicating with the customers and delivering those features that work. They can feel like, oh, with this one, I'm seeing a quick win. I'm seeing like why it makes sense to to use it. Because I guess we've all experienced some apps or some tools where you have the features for the feature's sake and you don't really know like what should I be doing with that. And if you're able to do that, then price increase definitely makes sense, because you're actually showing for what they're paying. You cannot only cover that, hey, it's an inflation price increase and everything is getting more expensive and we're also, but that might work for you once, and then what are you going to do the next time? So that's going to be something very important. But also, just the topic of the personal branding, I'm really seeing the big movement right now of everybody just really understanding the importance of it, and people starting one by one involving and empowering their employees on just expressing themselves, which kind of goes to just like basically gives us superpowers in creating and just bringing people from different boards. Either those are potential customers or even potential employees. This is a huge superpower, which I definitely recommend to everybody exploring.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate that. Thank you. So we are coming to an end, a little bit late end, because we are a little bit over time, but I hope that everyone enjoys this meeting, this live show that we are having with our lovely guests. Just to kind of conclude the whole discussion and think about like what we have discussed and what are the outcomes, what are the advice that is coming from our guests and their experience. Like, if there would be like absolutely one thing, one kind of number one tip for like sales, marketing, or growth, like you cover all the ground, guys, what would be the one ultimate tip that you would like to our attendees to walk away with today? Like, what that would be? Like, if there's like one thing that you should say, like, okay, from sales perspective, that's that. From marketing perspective, that's that. From growth, this is what you should focus on. And I will make a mix right now. I will start with Dipak, then go to Yurii and Thomas at the end, if you allow me to do that. So Dipak.
Sure. So I would go with the sales aspect. So life in sales can feel like a roller coaster. Highs may be as high as the stratosphere, and then lows will feel like a never-ending free fall. So my word of advice is don't ride the highs too high or the lows too low. And patience and perseverance are ultimately the backbone of those who really make it in sales.
Awesome. Like I could not agree more with what you just said. Yurii, off to you. The same question.
I'm just going to stick with that topic through the whole conversation. Build the personal brands, build that social proof for your sales guys. That will be a huge empowerment. That will be a lot of social selling leads, lots of inbound movement, and good potential employees.
Amen. Amen to that as well. We've noticed that a trend and a growing trend, a nice value to everyone's kind of when sharing knowledge, sharing experience. Just what we are doing right now today as well. But Thomas, the same question to you. The ultimate tip can be from your own ground, so marketing.
Yeah, but I think it's about stay really close to your customer and understand them, have empathy with them, and prepare for the long game. I think you will have that back in the long run. So it's don't do any, as Daniel said, any decision in panic. Make sure that you really know what's behind the situation.
Cool. There you go. Like Daniel is not here with us anymore, but definitely his words, his wise words, are backing up the whole story. Okay, cool, guys. That's all the questions that I got. But there are some questions from the audience, and I would like to give the floor to Michał to find a nice questions that we can.
Yeah, I think I will circle back to something that Yurii already mentioned with Steven's comment, Steven's question with regards to the influence is the new inbound. And that's basically, it's quite a good statement from Jill Rowley, if I pronounced it correctly. Sorry, Jill. But the question is how to actually empower your employees, your team, to become such a sort of personal brand person or the sort of power LinkedIn or other social media influencer. So maybe we can start with Dipak.
I think it comes down to helping people realize that they have a story to tell. Everybody has their own story to tell. I'll give you an example. So, for example, in my team, I have someone who's a professional DJ outside of work, and there's someone else who's into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Everybody has hobbies that they resort to after work, and we can really capitalize on those hobbies and always find links to sales. So, for example, what I mentioned to Tace, who's really passionate about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is like try and find the links between sales and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and really hone in on that. You're really passionate about both. Try and see if you can use that as a basis to build your personal brand. And like I said, everybody has a story to tell. In my case, I'm passionate about traveling. I've tried to make it a lifestyle for me, and I'm the first pieces of content that I started pushing out were predominantly focused on that, my travel adventures and what they've taught me and how they've helped me in becoming better in sales. So I was honing in on that and something that I really enjoyed. I used that to kind of get going because I had that fire. That fire was fueling me. The passion is something that I was really genuinely interested in. And then once I got comfortable in pushing myself out there, it just became so easy and natural to continue pushing content on a consistent basis over and over again.
Great tip. So basically just to stay yourself and not try to fake it, and definitely not try to sell, I guess, which sometimes it's an urge which is quite difficult to sustain. Thomas, maybe your version?
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, you don't have to have all the answers, right? You can also be a bit vulnerable and open and share your challenges and so on, and interact with audience. So I think that's also an important aspect of it.
Perfect. Yurii?
Don't stand in their ways. Like if you want them to create, set it up in the way that their work related things are like, you're not really like, if they have a quota to hit, make sure that you then reduce their quota if you want them to go and start creating, because content and LinkedIn game is a job of itself if you go up to some point. And if you start like requiring of them, hey, do this and do that, either make sure that your salary goes accordingly with that, or that you lower the quota. It's all about like, how do you keep them motivated? It's not about what you say, it's like what you do. It's your culture, is like what you are doing. So this is what I would say.
I think this is why it's important to have like this needs to come from the top, right? Like everybody needs to buy into this idea, the fact that personal branding is something that we want to do, and kind of build a framework rather than just doing things at random, because doing things at random is not going to lead to predictive results. So, working in tandem or having a strong alignment with the marketing team and helping and kind of leveraging them to help produce that content can also help as well, getting people started and going, because not everyone is naturally creative in terms of putting things down in paper. And if they have that help from marketing, it can be a lot easier in terms of getting the ball rolling and ultimately helping them gain that confidence.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. I guess consistency is quite important as well. And as Yurii mentioned as well, it's if you do everything, then basically it's only 24 hours within the day, so you cannot do everything equally good. So that's a good comment. Thank you very much for those answers. Second question is from Bogumił with regards to which lead generation strategy is number one in. Well, question refers to COVID, but I guess we can sort of go a little bit broader here with regards to basically downturn and recession. So, what's working in the tougher times in terms of the lead gen? And we can start with Yurii.
Well, I don't know if there's one thing that's working, because everybody's got a different business, or the way that we reach, especially like we were talking like the question here is enterprise marketing. In UE or EU, I don't know, but I'm in NSMB market. So what I've noticed is you gotta stay a lot on your toes. The things that have worked, let's say the things that had worked before COVID did not exactly work during the COVID, and the things that did work during the COVID might not exactly work right now. So you got to really understand where you need to double down on what things. What I really love to preach right now, if you're able to make a small win, double down on that. So if let's say I'm able to close or start a conversation with a good customer, I'm just going to go and scroll through every competitor over theirs and just going to start reaching out to them, because chances are they're having the same like problems. Or if I'm starting a conversation with a sales manager and I'm seeing that specifically problem resonates, I'm just going and blasting the same like roles in the same industries, and might just be like reaching out and asking, hey, is this also a thing? Because that gives me a chance of being relevant. So this is my take on it.
Cool, perfect. Thomas?
Talking in COVID and so on, I think there can be a lot of value in webinars and digital events. If you have really good content, I think you can bring a relevant audience to that you then can nurture via email and via your sort of sales development resources and so on.
Cool, perfect. And Dipak, if you can.
I would say pretty much what I mentioned earlier, which was defining your branding strategy and doubling down on content. Just to add on to what Thomas said, it's going to be a lot harder to put yourself out there just because everybody's going to try to do the same. And like I said, you need a lot more content to prove that expertise, because people are going to be conscious as to how they spend and what they spend on. So yeah, doubling down on content just to remind people that you are the thought leader in whatever you're trying to position, and just creating that expertise through your content.
Perfect. I think it's basically circling back to what Thomas said before as well. Just what they're doing at Saas Nordic, just more content and more sort of focus on the customers, going closer to them as well. Perfect. I think we've got the last one question, and that one is quite a biggie. I'll try to sort of summarize it a bit from Jonas. basically it's about sort of competing with your dollars in terms of what are the solutions that obviously it's going to be a little bit tougher in the downtime. Which solutions will basically get a chance to stay high on the priority list for the purchases departments in 2023. And we can start with Dipak maybe this time.
I'd like to just bring in something that Yurii mentioned earlier. I think personal branding will take a greater importance as we go into 2023. There's going to be a heavy focus in content and content strategies, and ultimately highlighting that expertise through people, because as we all know, people buy from people, not companies. And so yeah, I would probably say in the marketing or content aspect, that's where a lot of the investment is going to go into. That's my prediction, at least.
Okay, Yurii, what's your take on that?
I'd like to add to Dipak's point here is that we'll need to really be able to build a good relationship with our internal champions, because as the budgets are cut right now, we'll really have to have some advocates that will push him through, like, hey, this idea makes sense to go forward. And one of the best ways of doing that is when you have people that are really in love with what you're doing on your personal branding. Let's say in LinkedIn, you have those people engaging in your comments, listening to your content. They build the trust for you, and then when time comes and you're asking for something, they'll be willing to advocate for you. So in times like this, having a good internal champion is really very, very important. At the same time, you really need to know to whom you'll be reaching out to and with what ask you're doing, because our attention spans are increasing. Obviously, things are getting more challenging for everybody. So if I'm using my chance of making a first impression and I'm not resonating within 3 seconds, probably that opportunity is lost.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, this was a lot about, that there is a more rigorous approval process. It can be harder to do that impacting the organization. And I think it's important to have a really good sales process in place. Make sure that you map out all the decision makers, and also, as Yurii says, making sure that in those you don't get as many chances at all. You need to do that best first impression and make sure that you have the right competence in place. If you know that this is a solution where the tech part is really important, make sure that you have that competence with you, maybe even earlier than you used to have, so you don't end up being pushed away because you couldn't answer certain questions. Maybe you don't get the second, third, and fourth meeting. You need to be a little bit more on your toes.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I think that's pretty much the main questions. That's probably a little bit more, but we really sort of go longer than we anticipated originally. Paweł, would you like to maybe add your 2 cents to the questions as well?
Definitely great questions from the audience. I know that we are left with some additional ones, but we will try to close up right now, wrap up our event. We went over just slightly 28 minutes. So yes, we will try to answer as many as possible in the comment section. The magic of LinkedIn is that the video will stay there. You can comment as it goes, so we can engage with the content, with your questions, even in a week or 2 weeks if you plan to plant a bomb on our comment section. Like if there's something that would make sense for you guys, we will try to also chase down our guest speakers to make some relevant answers to you guys. So amazing. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for all the attendees, and I hope you did enjoy it as much as we did, because it was a fun event full of great energy and experience and knowledge. Please remember about our bonus packages for our attendees, for all of them. I think Mike mentioned about it in the very beginning. So thanks everyone for tuning in and watching. Hope to see you on our next events. Take care and see you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you. That was awesome.